The next topic we're going to look at is advertising. We're going to look at different types of advertising, how advertising affects a firm's profits, how advertising affects welfare, and whether firms advertise too much or too little. Before we do that, we're going to introduce some terminology. Consumers might be uninformed about certain attributes of a product, so they might be uninformed about the price, as we saw in the search model. They might be uninformed about quality, or they might be uninformed about horizontal attributes of products. Search characteristics are things about a product that you can determine prior to purchase through inspection. On the other hand, experience characteristics are those attributes of a product that you can only determine after you've purchased the product and you're consuming it. It may take some time to learn these things about the product. So the main distinction here is search characteristics you can find out prior to purchase. Experience characteristics you can only find out after you've purchased the product and used it for some time. So let's look at an example so we can understand these two different types of characteristics. So here we're going to think about clothing. So what are some search characteristics of clothing? Some obvious ones: color, price, the size. So you can see the size on the tag: medium, small, large, 10, 12, 14. Although you might be able to see the size before you purchase, if you're purchasing online, possibly you don't know the exact dimensions of the clothing until you've purchased. Closely related to size is fit. So fit is more about the match of the size to your body. Other search characteristics are things like the material. So you can see whether it is cotton or wool. The finishing. So if you're in a store, you can see whether the clothing has loose threads, is the stitching straight, things like that. So these are all search characteristics. What are some experience characteristics of clothing? So here you have durability, how long the clothing lasts. So you're not going to be able to determine that until you've purchased the product and used the product for some time until it starts becoming worn. Other examples, maybe if it's a jacket, it might be the waterproofness, although they often state the waterproofness using some sort of measure, but maybe you can't actually learn exactly how waterproof it is until you've worn it. I should say that the distinction between search and experience characteristics, there's not a hard line between these two types of characteristics. It may depend on what the stores allow you to do. So for example, with a car, if a store allows you to test drive the car, then that's going to mean some things which would otherwise be experience characteristics may now be search characteristics. Right, so there are different types of advertising. So advertising may present hard facts about a product. It could make vague claims, usually in order to create a favorable impression of the product. Advertising may list prices. It may reveal or signal quality. So the idea of revealing or signaling quality is that generally you're going to increase the willingness to pay of consumers for your product. Advertising may seek to differentiate. It may be the case that the products are actually quite similar, but advertising may give the impression of differentiation. And the idea of differentiation is to reduce price competition. In economics, there's a distinction between two different types of advertising: informative advertising and persuasive advertising. So informative advertising describes a product's objective characteristics. So it might provide the price, a list of the features, what the product can be used for, or it could just be to advertise the existence of the product. On the other hand, persuasive advertising is designed to shift consumers' tastes by making the product seem cool or desirable. So whereas informative advertising is informing consumers about attributes that affect their willingness to pay, persuasive advertising is about trying to affect consumers' preferences. Informative advertising is about telling consumers about the attributes that affect their preferences, but doesn't seek to change how much they value certain characteristics. Now, search characteristics are usually advertised using directly informative advertising, so through photographs, specifications, descriptions. In the case of experience characteristics, Advertising usually provides no direct information, but instead its presence and the level of advertising may be enough to signal the quality of the good. What is the goal of advertising? Well, the goal should be fairly obvious. The goal is for the firm to increase their profits. So the idea is to use advertising to change the demand for the product in a way that is favorable for the firm. If advertising shifts demand out, then a firm can sell the same quantity at a higher price. Advertising might make demand curves more inelastic. So if advertising makes the demand curve of a rival firm more inelastic, then that firm is likely to raise its price, and that will shift this firm's demand curve out, and it will be better off. It will be able to make a higher profit. So in the next 3 sections, we're going to be looking at 3 different models of advertising, which cover each of these cases. So we'll look at advertising that signals quality, we'll look at advertising that informs about characteristics of a product, and we'll look at advertising that is persuasive.